You should probably go work for Kitaku. I hear they're meeting people with that work
50
ethic.
guides, man. 50 guides a week. The I don't know if y'all saw my tweet.
Bellular stepped in it.
No, I haven't watched his video, but I have, like, from what I've seen people summarize on Twitter, it's like, all right, Bellular, like, way to be like, oh, let's tiptoe around this.
I saw his video. He's very nervous in that video.
Which the first one or the one where
the second one.
Oh, did he apologize?
No, he doesn't apologize. He steps around it even more.
Yeah,
and he kind of like he's trying to come from it from a very objective point of view. The problem is people don't want to hear that right now, and and he's not really done any research into it, and you can tell because he's like, I think that's what's happening, and it's like, dude, you probably should have gone away for a week.
No. I think he does know what's happening. The issue is that his connections and he has access and he has connections to those people, and he doesn't want to hurt their
access is control. There are content creators who I won't name who've talked to me about this, and it's that they've stated, like, I wish I could be as brazen as you, Brian, because like I can't. It's my business, my livelihood, and all this. Like, I'm like, yeah, like, that's why I really enjoy this being, you know, at most a side hustle, but at best, a fun hobby.
I think I was a bit mean when I replied to that tweet because I was very angry with what was going on in my country.
Oh, dude, yeah, I saw that law got implemented and whatnot. It's like, that's gonna be hurt.
I was,
good luck.
From my perspective, appeasement. You know, steel yourself now because it's only going to get worse in the future if you appease it. And, you know, don't give in to the bullies. You know, the ability to critique, the ability to create a freedom and laugh at anything is sacred. Don't give that up. Because they will take a mile if you do. And Edinburgh Fringe happened yesterday. And that should be interesting to see what happens.
That's gonna be interesting. It's a new law that it's like, that they can arrest you for what you say online.
It's not just online. It's not online. It's anything. So out in public, if you out in your home, so your children can effectively tell their teacher, and the teacher has a duty to tell the government that you're this, and you could lose access to your kids. Like, it's a full wide sweeping.
Wow, it is
Stasi level of.
Very Stalin-esque. If we.
I'm no longer in Scotland.
Very Mao-centric policy.
It's always the road to hell's paving good intentions. It's always the road to hell's paving good intentions.
Yeah.
You know,
well, the road to hell is also lies. Like, it's like refusing to say to tell people the truth. Like oh, I'm gonna lie so you feel better. Like, okay, like that in and of itself is like, that just sounds like hell. It literally just sounds like hell. I'm sorry.
I no longer live in Scotland, but my family does, and I can tell you the average per Scot is not the most politically correct people on the planet, especially if they are into football, because they are very religious in a sectarian sense. You know, Rangers is Protestant, Celtic is Catholic. They don't like each other, especially in certain areas, and the Scottish government's always tried to curtail this. And they've always failed, so I guess the only hope is that it's unpoliceable, like every other law they've tried beforehand.
Right.
But I think the biggest impact of that is going to be what J.K. Rowling does, because she lives in Edinburgh. She's Scottish. She's going to I think make or break it. And then you've got other people like, you know, Critical Drinker and things like this, who have a massive actual, you know, industry effect. What they say and do, I think, will determine that as well.
It's gonna be something to watch for sure, and it's like,
oh yeah,
that's where it's like, man, I love freedom of speech.
It's when I got angry at Kurt for this, and it's because what effectively is that the law basically, it makes you persona non grata even if you've done something that's not illegal. So if you're offended by like a joke like you made, Brian, for example, they will put that on your record for life. And that means you will never get a job. You will never get custody. You will never get a loan. You will never get anything.
Social credit score.
Social credit score. And I'm just sat there. It's like, people should have the ability to laugh. They should have the ability to create what they want. And if I was to retail this back to Bellular, because Northern Ireland is very similar to Scotland in many regards. He went to GCD. His company went to GCD. They know those people. They talk to them. His publisher, Fellow Traveller, works with companies like Sweet Baby Inc. because they will be on their portfolio. You know, if you need that consultancy group, you will be able to, you know, access that material for that publisher. And, you know, they will have a contract, and they'll have, you know, it's like Microsoft with their regulations, you know, for each creator. They'll say, we recommend companies do this, but it's not a recommendation.
No.
Well, it's a recommendation with like another like little sneaky like, well, we're gonna if you don't do what we say, there's gonna like we're not gonna tell you. It's that like it'd be really a shame if you did this. You know,
it's a kiss curse mechanic at the end of the day, in a sense. It's here's the money, here's the support, here's the devil's deal on the other hand with it, and it's. Be a team player, you know.
It's
give us your soul.
This moment in history right now, it's give us your soul, like sell out. But it's like it tells you who can, who like, even if you're like you don't agree with, you know, or you're like, you know, pro SBI. It's like I would hope that you would at least be like, people should at least say what's going on and say like, you know, SBI, them trying to target this guy, like that was wrong. Like, but they can't even do that. Like they can't even say. Like, okay, here's this one thing that's wrong about this situation. I mean, it's like, no, if you're all in that regards, where it's like, you know, my team can do no wrong, we're the moral authority. Like, it's not a team. That's your cult, man. That's you've made yourself a little god here. And,
I'm going to be honest. SBI isn't even really the issue. It's the quality of the products.
Oh yeah,
you know,
a fun game, people will play it.
Yeah, Baldur's Gate was the perfect example. It had everything in it, and it sold like hotcakes, and nobody cared.
Nobody cared.
Because it's a good game, but it's like microtransactions at the end of the day. If the game's bad, it's the topic of... and the problem is these games cost 200 million to make, plus marketing budget on top of it, like movies. You know, you've got a budget of like, what, 500 million? You need $1 billion to break even? Because you'll also have... And that's why the move to digital has been so extreme, because you can no longer afford the retailers. You know, Steam probably takes a 30% cut of that. You know, Sony probably takes the same. You know, if you're trying to squeeze every penny out, you know.
Well, I think budgets need. I mean, same thing with
that needs to come down.
Budgets need to like shrink drastically.
Well, it needs to come down,
and that's why there's a bunch of layoffs. It's because they're spending all this money and they're not making it back.
They're not, not to at least what they projected, and then just like the costs have just gotten unsustainable.
So it's just like one of two things has to go, right? Either the budgets have to shrink.
We get in the zone here. If anybody, just as a kind of a shout out for anybody who's here, thank you guys for the likes. But also, if you guys ever want to be a part of this, like jump into the Discord and hit, which is the top link in the description. This is like we're an open community. You know, and like if you, let's say you disagreed with anything we're just talking about with Bellular and SBI, you're still welcome here. Like you can always voice pro and con opinions. We're going to talk about them respectfully, and the internet commenters are just going to get mad because I'll get I see a comment or two going like, why'd you do this? It's like, I didn't make gaming political. Like other people did. We're gonna, but I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh, I'm not gonna pull a Bellular. I'm not gonna be like, oh, we shouldn't talk about this. I'm not harping on it in videos. I've got my own content plan that I'm working on, and I feel like there's enough voices in the space that they're covering it in a very decent way that I'm like, like I'm not trying to like hop onto any coattails, but I've been covering this for a long time. That's what my series Is It Safe for Kids is all about. Like going in and just like, let's just break down what's in it. If this stuff bothers you, just know that it's there. If this stuff doesn't bother you, that's fine. Like this is just information. That's all we're doing here.
The kid angle is so important, especially games today.
Well, that's the whole ball game. So like that their side essentially, if we're gonna just, you know, they don't have kids. Most of the kids right now, and this is my biggest issue, is they're sterilizing them. So they're sterilizing these kids, and so they're not going to have kids. So how does this idea, you know, propagate over time? I didn't think
you'd go that hard on it. I was like, wow.
No. This is this is a literal, like, you know, there are real realities that, you know, laws of it that we, you know, like let's say if I want, you know, my idea of a family to persist, having a family and having kids love that experience, you know, is then they go and say, hey, I want that for myself. And so everything is written on if you're having kids or not, right? So it's like within this movement, they're not having children and they are sterilizing themselves. And because they're doing those two things, the only way that they can recruit is through like indoctrination of children. And that's why this fight, I think, is such an important fight, hands down.
It is funny because I think I'm not religious, but I know you are. I am culturally religious.
A lot of people are culturally religious. Like,
I was brought up.
How does that mean?
So culture, like we would, a good example for us here in America is saying, like, if you look at Hispanic culture, they are very Catholic in their culture, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they fully understand the teachings. They just know that this is just what we do.
So I was raised in the Presbyterian Church in Scotland for 15 years. So I've done my dues to the church. So I understand religion very well. Yeah, apostate, I know. So it's like when I see a lot of this stuff, it's very religious to me.
It's very this entire fight is a religion argument. Like it's two religious ideas.
It's a secular religion.
Yeah. I think I saw, was it Dawkins? He was like, I'm glad there's less Christians, but I'm sad that the Christian culture, cultural Christians are diminishing. I'm like, well, you can't just destroy, Christianity for 30 years.
You can't have your cake and eat it too, man.
No, that's exactly what I said.
Like Sam Harris, right?
There's fewer Christians in the world, but he's sad for Christian. Like, you can't have one without the other.
They've been Western culture has been coasting on the fumes of dying Christian, influence for the longest time, and now they're starting to see what that looks like when all of a sudden it's like, okay, we don't have a set shared of beliefs and ideals, and then all of a sudden you take that out, and then like when I listened to Sam Harris denounce, like, what I'm going to use the word cultural Marxism, but the more popular term is woke, but denounce it. And he's like, and then like, do you feel like you have any responsibility, like, in creating this? And he's like, no, of course not. Like, yes, you do.
Kidding me?
This is built out of the new atheism movement. And so it is pure and simple Mao communist, Marxism that is just that has infected some people.
You're destroying the four olds.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's some real cost to this. Yeah, when people don't have kids, here's the thing, and this is like, I don't have no issue with any religion whatsoever, but who's having the children? Who is? That's going to be the future in the UK and everywhere. That's future. That is the future. Who has the children?
Scotland's had a census coming out this year, and the last census was 2011. And it said the population of Scotland is 95% Scottish. It's been 13 years since then. Scotland's not in a good place right now. It's got the census coming out later this year. It's going to be very different. Of course, it's going to be very different. Like the UK, it's very different than it was 13 years ago.
Yeah.
I wonder what it's going to be now. And I'm moving to Australia, so I don't give a shit. But it's just
Australia has some problems.
Australia has some issues.
Yeah, I know, but I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna get my citizenship for 5 years.
There, so.
Yeah, but I'm going back to Singapore eventually. That's where I'm going to, because it's just a good place to work.
Yeah.
But that's kind of my end goal. But it's just I wonder how it's going to turn out, because I think it's been critically unfair, because the UK technically in terms of GDP is the 6th largest economy on the planet, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of other metrics, if you take that into account, it drops from 6 to about 27. And so you're dealing with a country where people are paid like less than people in Mississippi and the US are being paid.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're paying Californian prices.
That's wild. That's wild.
So you're just like, it's like fuel. You're all complaining that fuel is dude. Was it $4? Like, it's like.
Yeah, I'm gonna point out Robert's point, because he's making an excellent point. Most people I talk to want to have more children. So like, obviously I talk to parents. That's who, like, when I'm, doing things, it's usually like kid focused. So we're doing things. So a lot of parents are like, man, how do you afford having 6 kids? And it's like, honestly, I don't. Like, it's just, it's, you know, like we're always going to have it, but I think it's a worthwhile sacrifice that we wanted to have a large family. But a lot of people are like, man, I really want more kids. And then even when they're later on in life, they're like, man, I really wish I had more kids. And the economic impacts of what's going on right now are absolutely to blame. When people cannot buy, and that's one of the things that is leading people into the, like this, you know, Marxist cultural,
it leads to worse education
that they can't afford in. You know,
actually, it leads to worse education, because if you look at the schooling system gets more money depending on how many kids per head there are in that community.
Yeah.
Which is why the schools in America, and probably some of the schools in the UK, are trying to keep as many children as they possibly can within certain areas. You know, it's like you can't choose your school, for example.
Right.
But it's like, if there's less and less kids over time. My school, I went to a private school in Bridget Island in Scotland. It shut down. There's just not enough kids.
Not enough kids.
There's none. They ended up having to make it an international boarding school.
I think one of the biggest culprits obviously is like student loans, especially within this country, because what it does is it keeps people from actually starting their lives. Like if you can't buy a house, you're missing out on, and not that you need to just run out and buy a house. Like there's a right timing of it, but like being, you know, like if you can't buy into the system, like I get why people are angry at it. I get why they're feeling excluded. There is a pathway, but it takes a lot more pain that I think that maybe my parents and our parents' generation had, because it's like I had to go through a massive amount of suffering to get out of debt. And I'm glad I did, because I hate that taste so much. I don't like the smell of tuna so much that I will not borrow money from anybody. Like it's just a rule. Hey, you want to, Brian, can you come out to dinner and stuff like that? That's fun. Let me check budget. Okay, no, I've used my out to eat money this month. I'll try to join you guys next month. I will not borrow money. You know, and it's like that in and of itself is, and it's hard because it's like the world is like, there are these billion and trillion dollar companies are spending billions and billions of dollars to get people into this indentured, you know, life of like you're always behind on you're always having payments, and your entire wealth building mechanism is robbed from you. And so I understand why people are mad. Like I get it, and there's a problem.
It really does remind me of a Highland clearances type of situation. Where, I'm not sure, because it is a big part of proper American culture in the sense of it used to be that you used to be a farmer and you used to rent the land from the Lord. And then if you wanted to, the Lord would pay you for, you know, tending the land, and then you'd pay him back in rent. And then if you wanted, you know, to create your own food, you'd have grain, and then you'd have to go to the Lord's granary, and then you'd have to pay him again to, you know, just to make bread. And then it'd be like a million other mini taxes until eventually you have nothing left. And then the Lord goes, oh, well, it's no longer profitable to keep you on. Bye-bye. And then, you know, he just turns it into like something else, and then you have nothing. You know, he's not giving you any money. He's just claiming it back in another way. And it's the same with the government in a lot of ways. Like taxation is too high.